This is
Oumuamua.
going to crash the podcast.
Yeah, this is where the fun ends. Oumuamua is the first interstellar object, which means it came from outside of our solar system. Now, who's to say if it's the first one, but it's the first one that we've actually seen. And they know that it's from outside of our solar system because of what it's made up of, because of its bizarre kind of flight pattern. It could potentially be some sort of comet, but it didn't have the trademark tail coming off of it, that most of them that we see are. Some people have even suggested that it's what's called a zombie comet, which means that it's just a looser mass of matter that's just like not held together as tight so that its trajectory would be a little bit different. But there's a lot of theories about this. This was all the way back in October 19th, 2017. Researchers discovered an enigmatic cigar-shaped object screaming away from the solar system at nearly 57,000 miles per hour. The entity was moving too fast to have originated from our own solar system, traveling on a U-shaped hyperbolic orbit that took it around the sun and sent it back out into interstellar space. So it came, it went in this weird U-shape, and there's a lot of different theories about it. There was actually a report written by he was either a Yale or a Harvard astrophysicist, and basically went on record to say that it could potentially be like a scout ship, or maybe even a UFO. Obviously, it's a UFO. Nobody knows exactly what it is, but that it could have been a scout ship from intelligent life outside of our planet. When people ask what it is, it was classified as a comet when it was first spotted, but did not produce the large puffy comet that streams behind it. And it led astronomers to second guess themselves. Some argued it was a rocky asteroid or perhaps even a new class of interstellar object. People have speculated that it is planetesimal, which means it's a chunk of rock normally incorporated into a larger planet that was flung from its native system by gravitational forces, or it might even be a zombie planet, or more precisely, a monstrous, extremely fluffy aggregate of loosely bound dust and grains. As a paper about the idea put it, left behind by a comet that disintegrated as it approached the sun. What do you think, man? What is your thoughts about this thing?
I think it's a giant space dildo.
Space dildo, you say?
Yep, that's where the scientists haven't got yet. No, I actually think it's probably just a space junk or asteroid, something from, I guess, I don't know the proper terminology, but it's just something from another galaxy. It definitely looks rock-like. It doesn't look as opposed to anything man-made, but, well, not man-made, but, it looks very natural, organic to me.
Yeah, I agree with you a lot on that. It definitely looks more like a rock than it does something like that we would see from an advanced civilization. Let's see, a jet-driven motion almost makes it sound like a spacecraft that came from another star. Even astronomers have been intrigued by the possibilities, and researchers at the search of extraterrestrial intelligence listen for any potential technological signs leaking from the object, but not once but twice, and both campaigns heard nothing. So they didn't hear any frequencies to make them think, or at least to prove to them that this could be intelligent life. But and you and I have talked about the idea before that we kind of assign our own understanding of life and biology to life outside of ours. Like the reason why grays or little green men look humanoid is because that's what we know. It's what we experience. But then you see a movie like Arrival. And Arrival, the spaceships, they look like these big giant shells. They definitely look organic. And the creatures inside of them are not humanoid at all. They're almost more like these squid creatures. They communicate through spitting ink. And I thought it was a really cool way of showing, especially mainstream audiences, that our perception of what alien life forms look like is very limited. And in actuality, this thing could be loaded down with, bioorganisms, like little tiny, algae, some sort of other life that maybe isn't intelligent, but that is definitely, got life on it. So I mean, I do believe that the potential is there. And there was a Harvard Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics released its own conjecture that it was a light sail from an advanced technological civilization. His reason centered on the fact that outgassing would have altered the visitor's rotation period, an effect that should have been easy to identify, but it wasn't. And this kind of all brings me back around to the idea of like Galileo and how back then people laughed and ridiculed at him for believing that the earth was round, and that science is kind of this thing that is constantly evolving. And I think the knee-jerk reaction is, if we haven't discovered it yet, then it must not be true.
Yeah, you hit on two things that are weird pet peeves of mine, is when people say, well, life couldn't exist on there. And I'm like, well, life as we know it. It could be
right.
It could be a gas that has consciousness. I mean, we don't know. I mean, what it could be, because we view everything through our lens. But you also hit on something that I see very often now, where it's science is not a democracy. It's not majority rule. That's not how science works. If that was, like you said, we would still think the earth was flat.
Right.
There's all of these great advancements in science were all by radicals. They were by quote unquote crazy people. All of them were, because they didn't agree with the norm. And so even though I don't think this is anything, I do believe in alien life, but even though I don't think this is specifically, it very well could be. It could be something that, it could be algae. It could be intelligent algae that is spread throughout this and guiding it. You don't know what any of this could be.
And the fact that it is from so far away, that even further cements the idea that the potential for interstellar travel could potentially be there.
Yeah, as long as you're traveling, was it 57,000 miles per hour? It seems like it's doable.
Yeah, and then the physics around that get weird. It's like, if we were to travel 57,000 miles per hour, we would just melt.
Yeah.
Right?
Like, I don't know. I mean, it depends on how essentially, if we're in a spacecraft and essentially it puts a shield around us, so the object moves that fast, but we inside do not. I think theoretically it's the same thing as a plane on a bigger scale. A plane, you're not going hundreds of miles an hour yourself, but it's on a bigger scale, as long as I think encapsulated inside is stable. I don't see why we couldn't.
And yeah, to kind of further what you were saying about, how the scientific community isn't a democracy and stuff like that, there was definitely a time, I remember in the 1980s, being taught that dinosaurs were direct relatives and descendants of reptiles. And that whole idea has dramatically been challenged over the past couple of decades. I think since about the 1970s, maybe a little before that, when they started to realize that hollow bones were much more close to avian species than they were to reptiles. And when Jurassic Park came out, a lot of people speculated even at that time that dinosaurs had feathers. At least several species of dinosaurs had feathers. And you remember the very first scene of the first Jurassic Park, the kids kind of just like, oh, what's scary about a big chicken is what it sounds like. And then Dr. Grant goes to give them the whole spiel about it. And it's just interesting. Science exists to be proven wrong. Science exists to be challenged. And nobody's ever said... scientific theory itself dictates that, it can... I guess what I'm trying to say, even evolution, Darwinisms, that thought, that's something that didn't come around until the early 19th century, some like 1920s, something like that. I don't remember exactly, but yeah, there's all these radicals that come in, and then the conventional wisdom, the people who hold themselves in very high regards in the scientific community, they'll laugh at it, they'll dismiss it until it's finally proven, and then they have to kind of eat crow and be like, well, guess maybe I wasn't right about that after all.
Yeah, that's the thing. I actually, why I love science in general, is all science is bad science until it's good science. All of it is.
So do you think,
which is fascinating.
Yeah, it really is. Do you think within our lifetime we will have any sort of conclusive evidence of life outside of our universe, or any sort of other life?
I think we'll have something. It may not be intelligent life, but I think we'll find something, a possibility of something. I don't know if we'll, have like first contact or anything like that, but I could see us finding something through some imaging on a planet where we're like, we're pretty sure this has life on it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I think when they found traces of water on Mars, that was a really compelling, that water used to flow on Mars. I think that was a very compelling little addition to this idea of, the sun is just one star. There are, infinite stars out there. And if each one of them could support life just because of its positioning to the sun and the fact that it had water, then there are literally hundreds and thousands, if not millions, of other intelligent life forms out there. And as you said, maybe not the way that we perceive them to be, but I do think that they're out there. So I think it's a matter of time. Maybe we won't find it in our lifetime, but I suspect within 100 years, I suspect, maybe 150 years, that it won't even be questioned anymore, and that people will have a deeper understanding of like, oh yeah, there are definitely extraterrestrials out there. And one cool thing about it is NASA has actually, because of this kind of stuff, they've dedicated a whole branch of their facility to constantly monitoring the stars and these radio frequencies and signals to hopefully contact life in some way. And while there hasn't been any concrete proof yet, the truth is out there.